It's all Amanda Waller all the time when Absolute Power Ground Zero #1 gives you 3 short stories that explains who are the wild cards she's going to add to her team in advance of the Absolute Power event. Who are they? And what do they bring to the table? Let's find out in our review. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Absolute Power Ground Zero #1 from DC Comics. What's this issue about? Well, it's an anthology. Basically, it's 3 stories in one. And each one of the different stories takes a look at a different character whom Amanda Waller has deemed an appropriate person to add to her team in advance of the Absolute Power event. Each one of the characters, some of which are familiar, one in particular may not have been expected. So let's stay tuned, let's strap in, let's buckle up, and let's talk about the 3 stories. In the first stage, Amanda Waller sends the newest recruit to join Task Force X, and we say join in air quotes, Dreamer, to Gamora Island to capture a metahuman with the power to help Amanda Waller in the next phase of her plan. That metahuman happens to be Jay Nakamura, who comes from Gamora Island and who is currently the boyfriend of John Kent, Superboy, Superman, whatever you want to call him. When Gamora Island is invaded by Amanda Waller's forces, the president is killed, and of course the president, as you know, is Jay Nakamura's mother. So now he's distraught because his homeland is being invaded, taken over by Amanda Waller pretty much in the course of a day, and his mother has been killed. He races through the jungle to find refuge, and there he meets Dreamer, who he thinks is an ally because they've been allies in the past, and that sort of works out that way. But unfortunately, that glimmer of hope just comes to a screeching halt when Dreamer, who's been tasked to capture Jay, does so, with a little help from Deadshot, who gives Jay a shot right through the ankle. Before the day is over, Jay will learn that Dreamer is the one that helped take over Gamora Island, and Jay's livid and enraged and incensed towards Dreamer, and of course also over the mother's death, making her, Dreamer, an enemy of Jay Nakamura for possibly life. The first short, written by real-life Dreamer actor Nicole Maines with the help of Mark Waid, is okay. It's not great, it's not fantastic, it's not terrible either, it's just okay. Dreamer, who is one of the newer DC characters, gets a chance to show off her powers, and Jay gets a rage-fueled spotlight when he learns Dreamer betrayed him. So you get some action, you get some emotional depth, and this is probably one of the better examples of writing from Maines, who is also sort of new to the DC Comics scene. On the flip side, Skylar Partridge's art is, I would say, serviceable at best. The outlines of the characters are pretty sketchy, and the backgrounds as well. And the composition is just sort of okay. It's almost a little bit bland, to be honest with you. So there's nothing wrong with the art, glaringly so. It's just meh. It's just sort of there. Stage 2 reacquaints readers with John Starr, also known as Time Commander. You say, wait a minute, he's dead. What's he doing here? Well, now he's coming back to life. How? Because Amanda Waller used John Starr's hourglass device to rewind the damage on his lifeless body, and that means it can resurrect him, which of course it did. Now Starr is forced into Waller's service because she says, I brought you back to life, now you work for me, you're part of Task Force X, and I have a task for you. She needs him to figure out how to make the hourglass work on the frame of the robotic Batman doppelganger known as Failsafe. The hourglass doesn't work on Failsafe due to a series of unknown energy types used in Failsafe's construction. A fact that's never explained or hinted at in the main Batman title when Batman shut down Failsafe with a ruse to trick the robot into killing somebody, which violated its programming protocol. Starr figures out how to get the hourglass to work on Failsafe within a couple hours, but he hides that fact until he can figure out a way to escape Amanda Waller. So he manages to drag out the repair process for several days. Eventually, Starr comes up with a ruse to get into his storage facility and get the parts he needs to escape through time. Unfortunately, his plan works until it doesn't work, because he gets the parts together, activates the device on his wrist, and jumps through time, but he jumps right back to the 5 days prior to where he's back in his cell, right in front of Amanda Waller, and she says, I've got all these time routers or devices that'll prevent you from jumping out of time into any other location or point in history except for right now. You're going to do what I tell you to do, and you're going to fix Failsafe. He's out of options, he's out of ideas, he's got nowhere to go, and John Starr brings Failsafe back to life. Looking back on stage 2, Chip Zdarsky, who's the writer, his contribution exemplifies everything wrong with the build up to absolute power and what we just don't like about what DC's doing with this big event right now. Waller is completely overexposed as a mastermind who seems to have the answer for just about every possibility or contingency, even when it doesn't make sense. For example, why would Batman let Amanda Waller take the body of Failsafe when he knows how dangerous it is? He knows the kind of damage that Failsafe can do if it fell into the wrong hands. Why on earth would he allow Amanda Waller to take Failsafe? That doesn't make any sense at all. How does Waller have access to time tech that would block Star's escape, but somehow can't get Failsafe to work? That doesn't make any sense at all. Failsafe, on the other hand, the robotic villain had so much potential, but then was just kind of wasted at the end of the last arc. How does he somehow emit these strange energy waves that are preventing the hourglass from working in the first place? He was built by Bruce Wayne, or at least Bruce Wayne that was infested with Zur-Nar. It's still built by human hands. Why is everyone acting like he's some kind of alien technology? He's not. He's a robot. There's just so many plot holes, and Waller is elevated beyond reason, and it's just annoying and it's frustrating. Everybody wants to be done with Amanda Waller. It doesn't make any sense. But on the flip side of that, V. Ken Marion, who did the artwork on stage 2, art looks great. It's some of the best art in the entire book. So it's not much of a consolation, but at least it's something. That brings us to stage 3. A little bit of a warning. Do not read stage 3 and everything that happens in it until you've read to the end of the House of Brainiac arc within the Superman titles, because everything that happens here happens at the conclusion of that arc. So just going to give you a heads up about that. So we see a lone escape pod zooming away from Brainiac's ship before it explodes in space. Pod lands on Earth, piloted by the Brainiac Queen, whose memory is completely wiped. So it's sort of functional, but not really. With Failsafe's help, who's now been activated as a result of stage 2, Amanda Waller picks up Brainiac Queen and takes her to a training facility. She uses the VR tech from the Sanctuary programming code to run through a simulation that raises Brainiac Queen from a small child to an adult under Waller's motherly care from a little girl who hates Earth's heroes, because that's what Amanda Waller's trained her to do. When the 20-hour simulation is done, Brainiac Queen's mind has aged 20 years, and she's ready to help her mother, and I say that in air quotes, rid the world of heroes. Of the 3 shorts in this issue, Williamson's setup, and that's who wrote Joshua Williamson, establishes the Brainiac Queen as a villain in thrall to Amanda Waller. And that's the story that makes the most sense, has the most emotional gravitas and weight to it, and has the most impactful motivation. Plus, you have Gleb Melnikoff on artwork, which is more restrained because Gleb Melnikoff tends to do characters with big, bulky features, like big, meaty hands and big, meaty legs and arms and everything else. It's a little bit more strained in this issue, and it works to the story's benefit. Overall, stage 3 is probably the stronger story of the 3 because it has a mix of action, it has a mix of great art, and it has the most clear and impactful and directed story that makes most sense. One of the things that came up when Absolute Power was introduced is, why would Brainiac Queen work for Amanda Waller? This short story explains exactly how that happens, and it makes the most sense, which sets up Brainiac Queen as somebody who is serving Amanda Waller not out of some bargain or deal or some kind of blackmailing leverage, which is kind of Amanda Waller's modus operandi, but in this case it's a form of emotional manipulation and mental manipulation, which is an interesting idea when you consider that Brainiac Queen is this super powerful AI. So interested to see how that plays out, and stage 3 is definitely the strongest story of the 3. Final thoughts. What do we think about Absolute Power Ground Zero #1? We get 3 short stories to explain how these 3 individuals, Jay Nakamura, Brainiac Queen, and Failsafe, come to be on Amanda Waller's side of the story leading up to Absolute Power. Of the 3 stories, Williamson's take on Brainiac Queen is the best mix of art and story, but the overall anthology, I would say, is decent to strong. Not fantastic, but decent to strong. And we're looking forward to see where this comes next. I think of the 3 characters that now join the team, Jay Nakamura is probably the bigger surprise, and his story makes sense in a roundabout sort of way. Therefore, we're going to give Absolute Power Ground Zero #1 from DC Comics an 8 out of 10. It's probably a higher score than most people were expecting. I was certainly surprised by this issue. It's not fantastic, but it's decent enough. And it explains a lot and gets you going in the right direction. So what do you think? Are you hyped for Absolute Power? Does this issue change your mind about Absolute Power? Give us a thumbs up if you're a DC Comics fan. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down in the description. And please stay tuned through the outro for the next review.